Hey everyone, I'm Cassidy Jensen, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Grace Allspaw, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And we are both owners of our own therapy practices and passionate about the world of therapy.
This is Two View Therapy, the podcast, a show where we will explore popular shows, hot topics in today's culture, relational struggles, and family dynamics.
Join us for your weekly session.
Because if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Scary. Hey, good morning. It actually is morning.
It is morning.
But yes, it is today. And we're here. Yes, I always feel so awkward. I don't know what to do with these intros, folks.
Yeah. Well, with that, welcome to episode 9.
9 already. We're chugging right along.
Yeah.
We've probably recorded 15, but that's fine.
9 that you've heard, which is okay with us.
Yes. Still fine-tuning.
Yes. Today is about imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's your imposter syndrome.
We're having a lot of fun creating these titles.
Yes, I'm trying to come up with some witty zingers. Forgive me today because I am very tired.
We're trying. But we're excited to talk about imposter syndrome. I think both of us have some personal experience with it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Which gives us an opportunity to speak on it in a way that maybe someone who's not experienced it.
Right. No, I feel an expert in this topic.
Yeah, I think especially as both of us are fairly new clinicians.
Yes.
You're more seasoned than I am.
Hardly.
But I do think in this early becoming a therapist, figuring out where you want to work, what you want to work with, and just sitting with people, there's a lot of, I think, self-pressure that kind of spirals into some imposter syndrome. But with that, I'm going to read you the definition.
Yes, I think that would be good. What is imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome is the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own effort or skill. People suffering from imposter syndrome may be at increased risk for anxiety.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. So it's a persistent inability. Like we don't have the ability to believe or acknowledge we have success.
There's a roadblock between what you think you can do and what you actually can.
Yeah. And that like our success is deserved, that we've accomplished something to reach that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking for myself, we go through the program. We have all of this education.
Yeah.
We graduate.
Yeah.
We have practicum. We have internship. We have real life experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's still some I'm just like, what am I doing here?
Absolutely.
I don't know if I'm helpful.
Yeah.
Well, and I just don't know about your inner monologue sometimes in session, but I'm just like flatlined of just like, don't even know what to do. Can't compute.
You know, there are moments where I'm sitting in session with people and I'm stumped or like, I need a minute for myself to process what you just said of like, I want to be cautious of what comes out of my mouth. Ultimately, I don't want to just say something to say something. So I'm often honest with clients and just like, I need a minute to think about this for a second. Like, I want to use the right wording here and want to approach this in an appropriate way. And so I just need a moment to think through that.
Good. I think sometimes I am trying to process and piece together. I look at my ceiling a lot when I'm thinking and try to formulate what I'm trying to say. And a lot of the times, like I'm connecting some dots on what I'm trying to say, and I'm not quite there.
Yeah. I look kind of at my doorway. It's like diagonal from where I sit, but I look up at the doorway and like kind of look like that. And I've had a few clients who like, it's first session or second session, they don't know me yet. And they're like, what's she looking at? Like, I'm just processing what you said. I'm just taking a moment to like think through that.
My brain is usually a lot more zippy than I can speak.
You know, a few weeks ago, I was in here when you hung up your degrees. And
That was a fun time.
yeah, it was. And I have my degrees on my wall in my office and my licensure. And I've had a few people acknowledge it, just like, oh, cool, you went to Friends, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm now over a year post-grad, and I still have days or moments and like sit with myself of, someone's going to come back and say I didn't earn this.
Oh.
They're going to come back and take my degree and say you can't be a therapist.
Uh-huh.
And I'm now a year out of school. Like, I went through 2 years of schooling, passed, did all that I needed to do, got all the hours. I actually had more hours than what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's no reason for me to think.
Right. You met all the criteria.
I met all the criteria, but I still have moments, and I'll catch myself. Like, I'll go a week and think that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I won't go a while. Like, I'll go a while without thinking it. But
Really?
I still have this weird fear that people are going to come back and say, you don't deserve this. You didn't earn it. You can't do this anymore.
Mm.
A part of that is a fear of not being able to do this, because I do love it so much.
Yeah.
And part of it's also that imposter syndrome of, why would anybody trust me to sit with people?
Mine, I think, is a little different. I mean, I think I have some clients some days where I'm just like, God, I don't know what I'm doing. But I have found, because I am kind of getting out of the anybody and everybody mindset and tailoring and finding my niche.
Mm-hmm.
So what I know I really want to do and I'm passionate about is more anxiety, depression, PTSD, and trauma, and especially incorporating my EMDR mindset. So I think because I have that on my bios and everything, when I have a client reach out specifically for the EMDR, I'm like, oh, hopefully I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm passionate about it, but I don't get to use it every day. So it feels more on the spot and just more intense when somebody's specifically like, let's do this. And I don't know, sometimes we get into it and sometimes we don't. And I think EMDR is its own thing, and there's just a lot of setup that I think I might drag my feet a little bit, or I expect it or need it to look like perfect. It needs to be following all of these steps when really we could dive in and do different things.
Do you feel, I mean, specifically with EMDR, do you have a sense of like your clients coming in and wanting it to be this perfectly planned out situation where everything falls in line beautifully?
No, I think a lot of people don't know what EMDR is. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and it's a technique used. I mean, it started with PTSD and trauma, but I incorporate it with all of my clients in any, I guess, some senses or not. Anxiety a lot, depression, it really building upon the negative belief system that people have developed. So I think people know it can be a tool for those things, but they don't really quite know how the process goes. So I don't know if they necessarily have expectation there or not.
Yeah. I was just curious if it's you that puts on that of like, this has to be set up
it's me. A lot of these problems are me.
At least you're able to acknowledge that.
I have a lot of awareness.
Yeah.
Well, there's some work that could still be done.
Yeah. With imposter syndrome, this isn't your first career that you've worked in. Is this the first time you've experienced imposter syndrome?
No, when we started recording this, I was thinking about all of the milestones along the way. So I did crime scene investigation. Before this, I did law enforcement for a very brief period of time, and that's, especially in that field, there's just so much you have to know. That you feel confused, uncertain. A lot of law enforcement is black and white thinking, and I was in the gray a lot because and it's very complicated, but at the end of the day, as long as you can articulate your reasoning as to something, typically you're in the good. But I just, I like to know, like, A plus B equals C, and it's not quite like that. And then with crime scene, yeah, I could be more methodical. There's not as much pressure. We were the last ones on a scene. I knew what I could and couldn't do and how to work things, but I think I experienced a lot of that imposter syndrome when it came to testifying in court, because I was the expert. And they...
Big word.
Yeah, they will ask a lot of technical questions.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I was doing that, I was in my early 20s. It's kind of crazy to think.
Yeah.
That impactful work, at least in my eyes, I don't know if everybody viewed it this way. I feel like the things that I found on scene, the processing I did, we handled and processed our own evidence.
Yeah.
So these small details could make or break the case. And we were working, you know, homicides and things of this nature with that heft to it. So,
well, evidence is so important for all sides of that. I mean, figuring out who done it.
Right.
Making sure law enforcement has all the information they need. Like, so there, I can imagine is a lot of pressure for you guys of like making sure it's handled right, correctly, and everything's done.
Right. We had different protocols in place. So
yeah,
again, I could have that checklist, if you will. So I think at times here and there, yes.
Okay. So not the first time you've experienced it. I would say I don't have the intensity of job history that you do. I worked in sales, was in management in sales, and then I worked in the aircraft field and managed a department for part of my time in aircraft. And there were moments of like, I'm rocking this, I'm doing great. And then there were other moments where I was like, who trusted me to do this?
Oh, yeah.
And I was young. Like, when I was doing sales, I was 19 as a manager. So I'd graduated high school. I worked for a year just doing sales. And then at 19, I was promoted and ran shifts and was in charge of people. Like, it was a big deal. And so there were a lot of nerves with that of, am I as good as, or
should I be doing this?
Yeah. Why would anybody allow me to do this? Because I haven't got training or anything.
Whose idea was that?
Yeah. Who allowed this? But I had managers above me who'd worked there for years and years and were really incredible at what they did. And so there was also that comparison for me.
That's the tricky part too, I think, when, I don't know if success is the right word.
Yeah.
When you have maybe a promotion or that success, and others it took a lot more time. I think with me that is trippy a little bit.
Yeah.
Did I really earn it?
Yes.
Because I feel like I surpassed a system.
Yes. I even think here, like, you and I work in what's considered private practice. We don't necessarily have a boss or necessarily someone we answer to. I mean, clients, we answer to them, and insurance companies.
Yeah, but
no, like,
for the most part, we're calling our own shots here.
Yeah, our own schedule. What kind of clients we want to take, and not that we're not taking clients because we don't want to. It's more of like you said, figuring out your niche of would I benefit this client based on my skill level. And I think more so in agency work, you just get what you get, even if it's not your area of expertise.
Oh, yeah. I think you bring up a really good point. I'm having some recollection here too, graduating. I feel like there's this push, at least with my program, setting you up. Like, the expectation is you're going to be at an agency and burn yourself out. And then at some point you get the privilege of working in private practice.
Absolutely.
So did I, what's the word I'm looking? Did I go through the trenches enough to earn private practice? But I knew I did not want to do agency work. Like, I feel like I did enough grunt work with the police department. Like, I knew where that could go.
Yes.
And I didn't want to do that. I wanted a sustainable long-term career that I was going to be passionate about.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, my dad's also a therapist, and we work together, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Shout out, Rick.
Yeah. Shout out to Rick. We work together. And so that's really cool. I joke, he's like a kid in a candy shop. He will just like stick his head in my office, be like, hey, girl. Like, he's so excited. And
Mm-hmm.
I go and bother him all the time. So there's that joy. And so when I started school for my master's, I knew I wanted to come here and work with him. And there is somewhat this underlying message that's like, every therapist should work in an agency and do their time, kind of commit to that for, however long. And people hype it up, even potentially they'll pay for your college, or they'll cover your supervision costs, or whatever it is.
We'll do some CEUs as well.
Yes. And I did for quite a long period of time have this almost guilt of,
I should be doing that to earn where it should be.
And like, even experience wise, there are things in private practice here we won't deal with just based on socioeconomic status, where our practice is located, just different things like that, the agency you would see. And so part of me is pulled with that of, I haven't done the work to earn this, just as you said, like, have I done enough to be able to earn like a private practice? And even thinking about the people we work with are pretty cool, and all very successful therapists, all I think really amazing at what they do. And so then there's that comparison game. Have I earned it enough to, like, in a sense, compete with these people?
Well, and I don't know if you felt this way, but when I first started here, it was your dad and 2 others.
Okay.
And shortly after, a couple more came on, but I was the youngest for a while, and I was like, don't mind me. You guys are established in your career. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. But I don't know if this is quite the imposter. I definitely dressed different than they did. So I was like, I hope that's not frowned upon, but I don't want to wear that.
Not a cardigan and slacks.
No, I was wearing my sneakers, and I don't know. So that sense of belonging, I think.
I will say there is a part of that for me of age, and even sitting with clients, I check myself, and I've had to have conversations out loud. Probably you and I, my supervisor, one of my good friends, Lauren, she's a therapist. I talk with her a lot about just therapy and like how we're doing as therapists. And there are moments where I'm sitting with clients, one married, or they're a parent and like figuring out parenting stuff. Couples sitting with them, and they're looking to me in a way to say, do you have any tools?
Yeah, you should have the answers.
Yes, which I'm really clear with my clients. I don't have a clean cut answer to give you and like perfect thing. But I will sit with you and we can process this and explore options and what's your desire for this, whatever. But there are moments where I'm like, I don't have the experience under my belt to sit with these people. And then I have to remind myself, yes, I do. I have the training. I have gone through school. I have done additional work to gain knowledge. I mean, reading CEUs, all the things that can help me. Though the imposter syndrome saying, what do you have to offer here?
No, I think early on, I felt similarly, and I had to keep telling myself, like in our program, at a base level, you are sitting with somebody for an hour to actively listen and to be somebody who fully cares. And I can always tell myself, I can do that.
That's the goal. Someone being heard, feeling seen, that someone cares about what they're saying. I love to work with individual women, teenagers and on, really. The youngest individual girl I've worked with is 7, and the oldest is 75. So like, I have
quite the range.
Huge range there. And part of why I love that so much is I think women struggle with identity and value.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, especially once they're parents, that a lot of their value and identity goes into that.
Motherhood.
Yes. And so that exploration of like coming into their own of who are they, and almost working on some of this imposter syndrome. Like you've done a lot of this stuff to earn a title other than mom. And so like acknowledge that. And even there's a lot of power that comes with sitting with another woman who says, you're doing it.
I love those moments. I see a lot of women as well. And I feel like it can definitely be like a cheering session.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a cheerleader sometimes.
Yes.
There are other moments where I'm not a cheerleader because that's not what they need.
Fair.
But there are moments where I'm like, okay, let's take a moment to acknowledge what you've done here. This wasn't some little thing that you're like, oh, yeah. Huh.
I get that a lot. I'm like, well, no.
Yeah.
Your value isn't just in this one identity.
Yes. I was just at a birthday dinner over the weekend with some really amazing women. I'd never met most of them. And two of them said that their identity was completely in being a mom. That's all they were. And the friend's birthday was, she looked at me and was like, Grace has something to say. And I was like, no, I did not. I did not have anything to say. But it was heartbreaking for me to sit with them and think, these women both, they're married. They both have successful friendships. They both own homes. They both have successful careers and jobs that are really hard, and they've worked to earn that title.
They've done it all.
Yes. And there's probably even more that I don't know about them, but that's what I learned in that period of time.
Right.
And both were so stuck on, we're just moms. And I think part of that is the imposter syndrome saying, you haven't earned this. And how sucky. Imposter syndrome is so stupid.
It is so challenging.
Yeah.
I think to my sister who went to get her PhD as a forensic anthropologist, and all of the tests and different hands-on things she went through, and how she also struggled. Like, do I even really know what I'm doing? I mean, she's identifying people based on their bones.
That's incredible. I mean, even thinking about PhD, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yes, I have clients with PhDs, and they're just like, I don't know how I got that.
Yeah, I have a young gal that she got her doctorate, and she said it so nonchalantly one day. Like, yeah, I've finished, and she's taken her exam to get licensure stuff, and was just kind of like, eh. And I was like, hold on here. You're the same age as me, and you just finished your doctorate. Like, let's acknowledge that.
That's a feat.
Yes. And like, I was in mostly back-to-back school.
Yeah.
To get my master's.
I imagine the nose to the grindstone there.
Yes. So I'm like sitting there with her of, hey, you've earned this. This needs to be acknowledged. And like, not that her whole identity or value needs to be placed in that.
Right.
But acknowledge how freaking cool that is. You did that.
That is an accomplishment.
Yes, that's huge. And like, now people get to call you doctor.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. I think imposter syndrome steals a lot from us, especially in those situations. And I have more experience working with individual women. I have worked with individual men, but typically I don't know if that's just my experience or in general thing of most of the men I've worked with almost are emotionally constipated. And so just trying to feel something, whereas women have a lot of emotions going on.
Right.
They're feeling a lot, but
we're allowed to.
Yes, as we should. And I think that's the goal for men, to be able to feel whatever's going on.
Right.
Rather than that emotional constipation. But more so with women, I think imposter syndrome, it's that anxiety. Like, we have 1,000 tabs open in our brain.
Absolutely.
Men don't always have that many.
I think they can compartmentalize and switch gears more quickly. I feel like I'm always thinking about 10 different things. So when I'm asked a question, I I gotta like if I'm in the middle of a task and ask a question, I'm just like zipping through that Rolodex of tabs. Like,
yeah. I do think imposter syndrome can affect anybody. I don't think it's limited to gender or job.
Right. No,
anything.
I think it can be a full gamut of things.
I have a brother, and we joke with him because he's so intelligent and has not always registered that. And now he has a really good job. He does like quality inspection stuff for airplanes. And so like he had to go through some additional schooling and testing stuff and requirements to get that job. And he'll say things like, I don't know how I got here, or I'm not smart enough for this. And all of us are like, dude, like, you're so smart. You tested with other people that you scored so much higher than them, and not that anybody's less than.
No,
but like acknowledge that you did this.
You were there. You got to that for a reason.
Yeah. You had the skills, you put in the work to learn it and invest some time.
Yeah.
And you're not an imposter. You are capable of this specific thing.
What value do you think imposter syndrome has, if any?
The value I think we give it is higher than what it should have. Does that make sense? Of like
a little bit, yeah.
Imposter syndrome, I think, especially you and I when we talk, has a pretty big hold on us at times. And so we give it a lot of value and say, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. And I think at times it's affected me as a therapist, sitting in the room with people of, I don't have what it takes to be here with these people.
I've definitely just been like in that mode. And I don't know if I'm fully getting everything my own. I'm just like, no.
Yeah. So I think at times we give it a lot of value. How much value do I think it should have? A really small amount.
Do you think, I guess, could there be any benefit to imposter syndrome?
I think at times it could be beneficial to help us acknowledge of like, we have those thoughts that pop up that say, hey, you haven't achieved this, or you don't have what it takes to do this, which is the imposter syndrome talking. But then it gives us the opportunity to sit and say, no, this is what I've done, and to acknowledge all that hard work that has been put in and what does give us the ability to be in a situation. Is that?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, for me, I'm like, I think about, okay, if I'm having those questions, or if I'm having those anxieties, I am staying open to doing more research or looking into some things.
Yes, curiosity. I do think I often have to remind myself in session, if I'm struggling, remain curious. That's like one of the most important things I tell myself. If I'm no longer curious, 1, about what's happening in my clients' lives, 2, about growing as a therapist, 3, about learning more, like the list can go on and on. If I don't remain curious and desire more for me or my clients, I can't be good at this. And that's a me thing. I don't know if that's branches out to other people, but I do think
that's a good sentiment to have.
Yeah. Curiosity. If it left, I don't know what I'd be doing here.
I think it would be more rigid and robotic and
limit.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. I have a client system that I'm working with that I've struggled with, and I have the tools, but I'm feeling stuck of how to always utilize them in this system. And I had supervision, I don't know, last week, and was talking with my supervisor about it, and she recommended a form of therapy I'm not confident in. That I've learned it, I know it, but it's not one that I have utilized a ton with my clients.
Yeah.
So immediately I was like, okay, before I utilize this, I need to go into some more research, understanding more, maybe pull out those books that I had from school that were about that and just dive into it. 1, because my clients need it, and 2, because it makes me a better therapist to not be limited.
How do you feel about it being kind of raw in session as far as navigating it with your client and letting them know this is kind of new for me. Like I have the gist of it, but we're going to walk through this together. So it might feel a little funky.
Yeah. I just had a new client intake who said, I've used this form of therapy in past therapy. Like my therapist said we were using this, and I'd like to utilize that again. And I just was super honest with them. I was like, if that's exactly what you want, I don't know that I'm the therapist for you.
Yeah.
I do know that theory. I've done it. I've utilized it, but it's not my area of expertise. And just being super clear and honest with people. And I then explained, like, here's where my skill's at. Like,
this is what I can do.
This is like, I utilize these two things mainly, but I add other things in to help in the situation. And if that doesn't work for you, please tell me. I'm not everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
And she was like, oh no, that sounds great. Like, I'd love to be able to combine all that rather than
just the one thing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, you know, if it's working for them and they had to leave for a variety of reasons, then they obviously want to stick to what's been working. But with therapy, there's multiple ways to skin a cat.
Well, and I would even say this is just my own, like, if it was working, okay, air quotes around that, for you in your last round of therapy,
why are you back?
Why are you back? Yes. And why did you not choose to go back to that same therapist? Like, that has me curious of, I wonder if that therapist was limited to that one form of therapy. And so then it's like, yeah, we can utilize it, but maybe it's not exactly what you need in the moment.
Yes. No, I think that's totally fair.
Which I think with that part of notes that I wrote down, you and I spoke about of talking about today is accepting that you won't know everything.
Oof, yes. Well, I think too, it's like you've got your master's, you've got your education, you've got your PhD, whatever the case may be. Don't you know it all? Well, and I think, I mean, we can obviously speak to the therapy perspective. Clients, I think, sometimes think we have it all. We have the answers. We have the solutions. We're going to fix it.
I don't remember the title of it right now. It's a Netflix documentary about a therapist, Jonah Hill, his therapist. It's called like Schultz or something.
I don't know this one.
Okay, you'll have to watch it. It's pretty good. It came out during my internship.
Okay.
And I had a client come in and said to me, like, sat down, looked at me and was like, you're not a robot. And I was like, no. Like, I'm not. And I said, where's that coming from? I'd met with him 4 or 5 times. He's like, I don't know. I just had come in here every time before this and thought, she's got it all together. Like, she's perfect. She knows everything. She's got it all together. And like, I need to seek help. Like, I need her to have the answers for me. And then he watched this documentary, and it was like Jonah Hill interviewing his therapist, which was a unique perspective because typically other way around.
Yeah.
And his therapist was real. Ethics. Yeah. It's maybe questionable, but it's all right. The therapist was just really honest and was like, I have my own crap I'm working on. And so
got a lot going on at home.
Yes. Like, it's not just this like buttoned up perfect person. And so I don't know it all. I can't possibly know it all.
Not.
And I will say after that conversation with that client, his therapy journey completely changed.
Well, and I think it's interesting that he had to tell you that when he's telling himself that.
Yes, it wasn't for me. I didn't need to know he didn't think I was a robot, right? But he needed to have that conversation with me where I said, oh, I don't have it all together. Like, I'm still learning.
Oftentimes it feels like a shit show.
Oftentimes. Yes, often. Which I think is okay.
Therapists see therapists too.
I've been seeing this joke on social media that's like, I'm going to find the therapist of all therapists.
Oh, yeah, the therapist chain. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the top of the pyramid. Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Or there's this reel that I keep seeing, and it has like, I've seen it for therapists, but other like professional business people. It's who you're emailing, and then it's them later on, and they're doing something wild.
Yes, that is awesome. I've seen a few with like lawyers, like really buttoned up people.
Yeah.
Hey, we could do that.
Yes, we
We
should.
could do that.
Yes.
I was gonna try and find the documentary, and talk about it. But anyways, so thinking about, we can't know it all.
No.
But we do have some things we do know well.
Well, and I think that leads us into our niche. What
Yes.
interests me the most, what I want to put the most interest in, the most energy into. What am I trying to say here? My words. What do I want to put the most energy into learning, and what I feel the most interested in? I enjoy PTSD and trauma.
Yeah.
Because I feel like my background can help support that. I can understand to some extent where people are coming from.
Yes. And I love to work with family of origin.
Yeah.
I call it hoopla. Like all the hoopla that goes on with family dynamics. I love to work with interpersonal narratives. So what messages are you telling yourself? What stories have created who you are?
Yes.
And I even think I do like to work with some PTSD. But beyond that, I know we talked in an episode a few episodes ago of like CPTSD is not in the DSM, and that's so annoying. For those of you listening that don't know what that is, complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
My understanding of it, because it's not in the DSM, but my understanding of it outside of that is it's more so relational trauma or the same situation happening repeatedly. It's not one big event that's like, okay, now I have PTSD.
I look at it as more like smaller events. I mean, they're still impactful, but like a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. It's not just one and done.
Yes.
So thinking about that, like I know family of origin, family dynamic work really well. I know narrative work really well. And I think it's funny, you and I talk about like EMDR and narrative.
Yes.
They have a lot of similarities. And like Inside Out, the movie that just came out, the second one, they talk in it about her beliefs, and I would call those narratives. Like
I would call them negative cognitions.
Yes. So just looks at how it depends on how you look at the situation, because that movie was based, they talked with some IFS therapists, which are internal family systems. And so however you slice it, right? If I was looking at it from an IFS standpoint, my imposter syndrome would be like, absolutely not. You don't have the skills to do this.
Yes. Yeah. No, I could see that. Yeah.
Narrative. I believe today, at least, that I have the skills to dive into someone's narrative and help re-author, re-story.
Yeah, I think I like to do that. I feel like those beliefs really go a far way.
So I'm going to giggle a little here because when we were writing notes, it was meant to be written down as nurturing, but it's neutering in our notes.
That's me spelling.
How do you nurture imposter syndrome?
Well, I think this was Shonda's idea.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I guess I'm wondering if it's being gentle with yourself, being patient.
Yeah.
Reminding yourself. I think going back to like just a basic level of, I have done this work. I have done this work, which sets me apart from others.
So in that, of like when nurturing those thoughts of when something pops in your head that imposter syndrome saying one thing, with nurturing it, is that in a sense not dismissing your own feelings and emotions that come up? Like rather than saying, oh no, that's not true, don't believe that, in a way nurturing it is like, okay, why is this coming up for me?
How is it true? How is it not?
Why is this being said?
Where is this really stemming from?
Yes. What's at the core of that? Rather than
are there anxieties, are there judgments?
Yes. Is it
Confidence, identity.
perfection? The
Yeah.
desire for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
I think even with that, unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
If there are unrealistic expectations, those things are going to become true.
Absolutely.
But if we acknowledge and understand where we're at, imposter syndrome doesn't really have a hold.
Right. I think it ultimately is we're being kinder to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We are our own worst critic. Tell it to my kids a lot. We're our own competition.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think in the therapy world, especially thinking about like, I graduated with, I think 26 people, 26 other people. And so like, do they know more? Did they learn more?
Yeah.
Are they going to be more successful?
Ooh,
or
that
even
was a
like,
good one. Yep.
should I be in this field?
Mm-hmm.
There are other people that could be doing this better. Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than saying, okay, I made it through my master's for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I did all this schooling. I had grades. I had professors. I had people who wrote recommendations for me.
Yeah.
For licensure exams and all of
Mm-hmm.
that. So rather than the comparison game of all these people that graduated with me, I can just say, I need to stay in my lane.
Yeah.
We're all doing our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Half of us agency, half of us private practice.
And then some in mine went on to get PhDs or decided they want to do something different. But I think, there's always going to be somebody who knows more about something else. Again, it's what you're finding interest in.
Yeah. My dad's been in this field 18 years at this point, something around there.
Mm-hmm.
So quite a bit of my life, over half my life at this point. And he knows a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He also reads every day. It's super annoying.
That's hard when everybody's like, there is a stack of like therapy literature that I need to get to, but I also want to have like enjoyable reading.
And even some time watching Love Island.
Yes. It's not like finding the balance, but yeah, there's some EMDR books I want to listen to. One of my clients reached out and told me a book that I think would be really interesting because I like to go into like brain science and things like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just reading it, it's only one thing. So how much of that am I going to absorb?
Yeah. Thinking about education of specifically in this field, there's been a lot of education to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have 3 degrees.
Yeah.
Not like you did a lot of work to get here. And like going back to all that training and acknowledging, and then even thinking about there are still things we've got to dive into.
Absolutely.
But there can be a balance between work and play. Like,
I think there needs to be.
If there's not, circling back to a last episode of, are you wearing your life vest?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be drowning because you're not?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as we close out today, but even looking to future episodes, we have one coming up on grief, and then another coming up about the new movie, and it's also a book, It Ends With Us.
Yeah.
And so
I just see that.
I think it will, from a therapeutic standpoint, be really good for us to watch and review and see the patterns in it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, for those of you who haven't seen it, potentially go watch it if you want to listen to that episode.
I'm going to be curious too, your perspective versus mine from a therapeutic lens.
Absolutely.
Your takeaways versus mine.
Absolutely.
We plan on taking notes, so it is for research.
Sorry if anybody else is in the same theater as us. We're going to be having our notes out.
I want to be able to remember key facts.
Yeah, me too. Ultimately, though, with each of these episodes coming up, creating change, desire for
self-improvement,
beliefs and values, and do you value who you are? Is there love and connection with yourself? And ultimately, if nothing changes,
nothing changes.
We wanted to say thank you for listening today. You can find our Instagram at 2View Therapy and view our merchandise through our Etsy shop at 2View Therapy.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. If you are in a mental health crisis, contact your local crisis center, or you can call and text 988.